Lisa Martinez stared at her husband across their beautiful dining room table, a thick stack of papers between them. Her heart pounded as she pushed the prenuptial agreement toward him. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading for weeks. She owned 3 successful bakeries in Denver, Colorado, and she wasn't about to lose them to anyone. Not even to David, the quiet man she'd been married to for 2 years. But David just smiled. That strange, knowing smile that made her stomach flip. Without arguing, without even looking upset, he picked up the pen and signed his name on every page. Lisa should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt like she just made the biggest mistake of her life. If you're enjoying this story, please hit the like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Are you in New York, Texas, California, or somewhere else? Drop your location below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Lisa had worked incredibly hard to build her bakery business. She started with one small shop when she was just 25 years old, baking cookies and cakes in the early morning hours before the sun came up. Now, at 35, she owned 3 bakeries called Sweet Lisa's across Denver. People loved her chocolate chip cookies and her beautiful wedding cakes. She had earned every single dollar herself. No one had given her anything. That's why the prenup seemed so important. Her lawyer, Mr. Stevens, had told her it was the smart thing to do. "Lisa, you need to protect what you've built," Mr. Stevens had said in his fancy office downtown. "If something ever happens to your marriage, this document makes sure your bakeries stay yours. It's just good business." So Lisa had agreed. She'd spent $3,000 on lawyers to write up the prenup. The document said that everything she owned before and during the marriage would stay hers. Everything David owned would stay his. Simple and clean. The hard part was asking David to sign it. Lisa had practiced what she would say for 2 whole weeks. She imagined David getting angry. She thought he might yell or refuse to sign. Some of her friends told her their husbands would never agree to something like this. But when she finally put the papers in front of David that Tuesday evening, he surprised her completely. David was 38 years old, tall and calm, with dark hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides. He worked as an engineer, designing buildings and bridges. He was the kind of person who thought carefully before speaking and never seemed to get too excited or too upset about anything. "A prenuptial agreement," David said quietly, reading the first page. "After 2 years of marriage, you want to make sure our money stays separate." He didn't sound angry. He didn't even sound hurt. He just sounded interested. Like she'd shown him the instructions for building something. "It's not that I don't trust you," Lisa said quickly, her words tumbling out in a rush. "It's just that my bakeries are really important to me. I worked so hard to build them, and my lawyer said this was the responsible thing to do. It protects both of us, really. You keep your stuff, I keep my stuff. That way there's no confusion later." David nodded slowly. He turned to the second page, then the third, reading every single word. Lisa watched him nervously. The grandfather clock in the corner, the one that came with the house they were renting, ticked loudly in the silence. Their house was beautiful. It was a huge old mansion on the edge of Denver, with tall windows and a wraparound porch. Lisa had been shocked when David found it 2 years ago, right before their wedding. The rent seemed surprisingly cheap for such a nice place, but David had explained that the owner was a family friend who gave them a good deal. "This says everything you earn stays yours," David observed, still reading. "The bakeries, any new businesses you start, all of it remains your property no matter what happens." "Right," Lisa agreed. "And anything you have stays yours too. It's fair." David reached the last page and picked up the expensive pen Lisa had bought just for this moment. Without hesitating, he signed his name in neat, careful letters, David Chin. "There," he said, sliding the papers back to her. "Your bakeries are protected." The way he said it made Lisa feel strange. There was something in his voice, not meanness, but maybe amusement. Like he knew a joke she didn't understand. "You're not mad?" she asked. "Why would I be mad?" David replied. "You're protecting what you worked hard to build. That makes sense." His phone buzzed on the table. David glanced at it and pressed a button to silence it. Lisa noticed the caller ID said, Mr. Harrison. David had been getting a lot of calls from someone named Mr. Harrison lately, and he always took them in another room. Who's Mr. Harrison? Lisa asked, trying to sound casual. Just a family lawyer, David said. Nothing important. But the way he said, nothing important, made it sound very important indeed. Lisa gathered up the signed prenup with shaking hands. She should have felt happy. Relieved. Proud of herself for being smart and protecting her business. Instead, she felt awful, like she just told David she didn't really love him. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling while David slept peacefully beside her. The moonlight came through the tall windows of their bedroom, making shadows on the walls. Why had he signed so easily? Why wasn't he hurt or angry? And who was Mr. Harrison? The next morning, David got up early as usual. Lisa heard him downstairs in the kitchen making coffee. When she came down in her bathrobe, she found him reading something on his phone with that same small smile. Good morning, he said, looking up. I made your favorite coffee. Thanks, Lisa said, accepting the mug he handed her. The coffee was perfect, exactly how she liked it, not too hot, with just a little cream. David had always been thoughtful like that. He remembered small things. He brought her flowers for no reason. He asked about her day and actually listened to her answers. That's why she'd fallen in love with him 3 years ago when they met at a friend's party. Back then, David had seemed like a regular guy with a regular job. He drove a normal car, wore normal clothes, and lived in a small apartment. Nothing fancy. Lisa had liked that about him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. I have to go meet Mr. Harrison this morning, David said, putting his phone in his pocket. I'll be back this afternoon. What's this meeting about? Lisa asked. You've been seeing him a lot lately. David paused, like he was deciding how much to tell her. Just some family business stuff. My grandfather's estate. It's boring legal things. Your grandfather? Lisa said, surprised. I didn't know you had a grandfather. You never talk about your family. He passed away a long time ago, David explained. When I was in college. But there were some complications with his will. The lawyers are still sorting it out. This was news to Lisa. In 3 years of knowing David, he'd hardly mentioned his family at all. She knew his parents had died when he was young and that he'd been raised by his grandfather. But that was about it. David didn't like talking about his past. Is everything okay? She asked. Everything's fine, David assured her. Actually, everything's very good. I'll tell you about it soon. Then he kissed her on the forehead and left. Lisa stood in the kitchen, holding her coffee, feeling more confused than ever. That afternoon, Lisa met her best friend Rachel for lunch at a cafe downtown. Rachel owned a flower shop and had been Lisa's friend since high school. She was the kind of person who always told the truth, even when it was hard to hear. So he just signed it? No fight at all? Rachel asked, her eyes wide with surprise. She took a big bite of her sandwich. Not even a single question, Lisa confirmed. He read every word, then signed his name like he was signing for a package delivery. Rachel shook her head. That's weird, Lisa. When my sister asked her husband to sign a prenup, he got so mad they almost called off the wedding. Most guys don't like prenups. I know, Lisa said miserably. That's what I expected. I was ready for a big argument. But David just agreed. And these phone calls from the lawyer? Rachel pressed. That's suspicious too. What kind of family business takes months of phone calls? Lisa had been wondering the same thing. Maybe he inherited some money from his grandfather? But if he did, why wouldn't he tell me? Maybe he doesn't trust you, Rachel suggested gently. Maybe that's why he signed the prenup so easily. If he's hiding money, he doesn't care about protecting your bakeries because he's already protecting something bigger. The thought made Lisa's stomach hurt. Was David keeping secrets from her? Did he have money she didn't know about? Or maybe, Rachel continued, he's in some kind of trouble. Maybe this lawyer is helping him with a lawsuit or something bad. David's not the type to get in trouble, Lisa said, but she didn't sound very sure. People surprise you, Rachel said wisely. She was 36 and had been divorced once, so she thought she knew everything about relationships. My ex-husband seemed like the nicest guy in the world until I found out he had a whole credit card I didn't know about. He'd spent $20,000 on who knows what. Lisa pushed her salad around her plate. She'd lost her appetite. What should I do? She asked. Rachel leaned forward. You should find out what he's hiding. You're his wife. You have a right to know if he's in trouble, or if he's got secret money or whatever this is. You mean, spy on him? I mean investigate, Rachel corrected. Look, you own 3 businesses. You're a smart woman. You didn't build Sweet Lisa's by ignoring warning signs. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Lisa knew Rachel was right about one thing: she was good at noticing when things didn't add up. That's how she ran her bakeries. She paid attention to details. She noticed when the numbers didn't match, or when employees weren't telling the whole truth. And right now, everything about David's behavior felt like it didn't add up. That evening, Lisa decided to do something she'd never done before. When David went upstairs to take a shower, she quietly opened his desk drawer in the little office room they had. Her hands shook as she looked through his papers. She felt terrible, like a sneaky person, but she needed to know what was going on. Most of the papers were boring: bills, receipts, work documents about building projects. But then Lisa found something interesting: a bank statement from a bank she'd never heard of. It wasn't the bank where they had their joint checking account. The statement showed David's name at the top. And the balance made Lisa's eyes go wide. The account had $50,000 in it. $50,000. And there were deposits every month from something called Harrison Legal Trust Services. Lisa's mind raced. Why did David have a secret bank account? Where was this money coming from? And why hadn't he told her about it? She quickly took a picture of the statement with her phone, then put everything back exactly how she found it. Her heart pounded so hard she thought David might hear it from upstairs. When David came back downstairs with wet hair, wearing comfortable clothes, Lisa was sitting on the couch pretending to watch TV. Want to watch a movie? David asked, sitting beside her. Sure, Lisa said, but she barely paid attention to the movie. All she could think about was that bank statement. $50,000. Secret phone calls. A mysterious lawyer named Mr. Harrison. What was her husband hiding? The next day, Lisa did something she'd never imagined she would do. She hired a private investigator. His name was Tom Bradley, and he had an office in a boring building downtown. Rachel had given her his number, saying that her sister had used him during her divorce. Tom was about 50 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. His office had pictures on the wall showing him in a police uniform from many years ago. Mrs. Chin, Tom said, shaking her hand. Please sit down. Tell me what's going on. Lisa sat in the uncomfortable chair across from his desk and explained everything. The prenup that David signed too easily. The mysterious phone calls. The secret bank account with $50,000. Tom listened carefully, taking notes on a yellow pad of paper. What do you think he's doing? Lisa asked when she finished. Is he planning to leave me? Or is he in some kind of trouble? Tom leaned back in his chair. Could be a lot of things, Mrs. Chin. The money could be from an inheritance, a lawsuit settlement, a secret business, hard to say without investigating. The law firm, Harrison Legal Trust Services, that's interesting though. Why? Lisa asked. That's a very expensive law firm, Tom explained. They don't handle regular legal stuff. They specialize in managing money for wealthy families. Trusts, estates, inheritances. We're talking about people with millions of dollars. Millions? Lisa repeated. But David's just an engineer. He makes good money, but not millions. Tom shrugged. Maybe his grandfather was wealthy. You said David mentioned something about his grandfather's estate, right? Lisa nodded. I can look into this for you, Tom offered. Follow your husband for a week or two, see where he goes, who he meets with. Check public records about this Mr. Harrison and any connection to David's family. It'll cost about $2,000. $2,000 was a lot of money. But Lisa's 3 bakeries made good money, and she needed to know the truth. Okay, she agreed. Do it. They shook hands, and Lisa left the office feeling like she just crossed a line she could never uncross. She'd hired someone to spy on her own husband. But she had to know what David was hiding. She just had to. For the next 2 weeks, Lisa tried to act normal around David. She kissed him goodbye in the morning. She asked about his day at dinner. She pretended everything was fine. But inside, she felt sick with worry and guilt. Tom Bradley called her every few days with updates. He'd followed David to his engineering office, to the grocery store, to Harrison Legal Trust Services 3 times. Your husband's not having an affair, Tom reported. He goes to work, comes home, meets with lawyers. That's about it. He's either the most boring guy in Denver or he's handling some serious legal business. On the 14th day, Tom called with bigger news. Mrs. Chin, I think I found something, he said, his voice excited. Can you come to my office? Lisa left work early and drove to Tom's office, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they hurt. In his office, Tom spread papers across his desk like a detective in a TV show. Your husband's grandfather was named William Chin, Tom began. He died 15 years ago. And Mrs. Chin, he was very, very rich. How rich? Lisa whispered. He owned a huge amount of land outside Denver. A mansion. And he had about $20 million in investments and property. $20 million. Lisa felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. According to the will I found in public records, Tom continued, William Chin left everything to his grandson David. But there was a special condition. David couldn't access the full inheritance until he turned 38 years old. David just turned 38, Lisa said slowly. 3 months ago. Exactly, Tom confirmed. That's why he's been meeting with Harrison Legal Trust Services. They've been managing his grandfather's money all these years. Now that David's 38, he's probably finalizing everything to get full control of the inheritance. Lisa felt dizzy. $20 million, she repeated. Give or take, Tom said. And that mansion you and David live in? I checked the property records. It's not a rental. David owns it. His grandfather left it to him. He's owned it the whole time you've been living there. The room seemed to spin. All this time, she'd been worried about protecting her 3 little bakeries, worth maybe $2 million total, from a man who owned $20 million. She'd made him sign a prenup to protect $2 million from someone who had $20 million. Lisa had never felt so stupid in her entire life. Lisa sat in her car outside Tom Bradley's office for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. $20 million. David had $20 million, and he'd let her parade around with her prenup like she was some big shot protecting her assets from him. He'd watched her worry about her $2 million bakery business while sitting on a fortune 10 times bigger. Why would he do that? Why would he lie to her? Lisa's sadness quickly turned into anger. She started the car and drove home, her mind racing with hurt feelings and questions. When she got home, David was in the kitchen making dinner. The smell of chicken and vegetables filled the house. He looked up and smiled when she walked in. Hey! You're home early, he said cheerfully. I'm making that stir-fry you like. It'll be ready in. I know about the money, Lisa interrupted, her voice shaking. David's smile faded. He turned off the stove and faced her completely. What money? He asked carefully. Don't play dumb with me, David! Lisa's voice rose. I know about your grandfather. I know about the $20 million. I know you own this house, that we're not renting it at all. I know everything. David's expression changed. He didn't look surprised or upset. He looked tired. Like he'd been waiting for this moment, and was almost relieved it had finally come. How did you find out? He asked quietly. I hired a private investigator, Lisa admitted. I hired someone to follow you because you were acting so weird and secretive. You hired someone to spy on me? Now David did look hurt. Instead of just asking me what was going on, you paid a stranger to follow me around? You were lying to me, Lisa shot back. You let me think you were just a regular engineer. You let me give you that prenup to sign, knowing the whole time that you had way more money than me. You made me look like a complete fool. David leaned against the kitchen counter and crossed his arms. I didn't lie to you, Lisa. You never asked me if I had money. You just assumed I didn't. That's the same as lying. Lisa felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she was too angry to cry. You watched me stress out about protecting my bakeries from you when you could buy my entire business 20 times over and not even notice. How could you do that to me? How could I do that to you? David's voice got louder now, too. How about we talk about how you treated me? You made me sign legal papers saying you didn't trust me. You hired someone to investigate me like I'm a criminal. You never once came to me and said, Hey David, I'm worried about something. Can we talk? You went behind my back instead. They stared at each other across the kitchen, both breathing hard, both hurt and angry. Why did you hide the money from me? Lisa asked, her voice breaking. If you inherited all that, why didn't you just tell me? David was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was sad. My grandfather William taught me something important, he said. He told me that when people know you have money, they treat you differently. They either want your money, or they're afraid you'll think they want your money. Either way, the money gets in the way of real love. He walked over to the kitchen table and sat down heavily in a chair. When I met you 3 years ago at Sarah's party, you didn't know anything about my family or my grandfather's money, David continued. You just liked me for me. You laughed at my jokes. You thought I was interesting. You didn't care that I drove an old car or lived in a small apartment. Lisa remembered that party. David had been quiet and kind, helping clean up even though he barely knew anyone there. She thought he was handsome and smart. She'd liked how he really listened when she talked about her dream of opening more bakeries. I wanted to keep it that way, David said. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what my grandfather left me. So I didn't tell you about the inheritance. But we got married, Lisa protested. You're supposed to tell your wife important things like that. The inheritance had rules, David explained. I couldn't touch most of the money until I turned 38. So for the first year of our marriage, it didn't really matter anyway. The lawyers were managing everything. What about this house? Lisa demanded. You told me we were renting it. I said it belonged to a family member who gave us a good deal, David corrected. That was true. My grandfather left it to me, and I let us live here for free. That's a pretty good deal. Lisa wanted to argue, but she realized he was technically right. He hadn't exactly lied, he just left out huge, important details. And then I turned 38 3 months ago, David went on. And suddenly the lawyers were calling all the time because I could finally access everything. I was trying to figure out how to tell you. I knew you'd be upset that I'd kept it secret for so long. So you just didn't tell me? Lisa said. You kept hiding it? I was going to tell you, David insisted. I was working up to it. But then you surprised me with that prenup. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter and hurt. You sat me down and told me you needed to protect your bakeries from me, he said. You made it so clear that you saw me as a potential threat to your business. How was I supposed to tell you about my money after that? You just proven that you thought about our marriage in terms of dollars and cents. Lisa felt like she'd been slapped. That's not fair. I was just being smart, my lawyer said. Your lawyer doesn't know me, David interrupted. Your lawyer doesn't love you. I do. Or at least I did. I'm not sure what we have now. The words hung in the air between them like a heavy fog. What do you mean? Lisa whispered. David rubbed his face with both hands, looking exhausted. I mean that this whole situation has shown me something I didn't want to see, he said. When you thought I was just a regular guy with a regular job, you didn't trust me enough to skip the prenup. You didn't trust me enough to talk to me when you got suspicious. You hired a detective instead. That tells me that maybe you never really trusted me at all. That's not true, Lisa protested, but even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. Had she ever really trusted David completely? And you know what I learned? David continued. I learned that my grandfather was right. Money does change things. Even the possibility of money changes things. You were so focused on protecting yourself that you forgot we're supposed to be a team. Lisa sank into a chair across from him, feeling the fight drain out of her. So what happens now? She asked quietly. David looked at her with sad eyes. I don't know, Lisa. I really don't know. That night, they slept in separate bedrooms for the first time in their marriage. Lisa lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything that had happened. She'd been so proud of herself for being smart and protecting her business. But had she been protecting herself right out of a good marriage? David was right about some things. She hadn't trusted him enough to just ask what was going on. She jumped straight to hiring an investigator. And the prenup, she presented it like he was definitely going to try to take her money someday. But David was wrong about some things too. He'd hidden something huge from her. $20 million wasn't just a small detail you forgot to mention. And he'd let her embarrass herself with that prenup instead of being honest. They'd both messed up. But was their marriage over because of it? The next morning, Lisa called Rachel and told her everything. 20 million? Rachel shrieked into the phone. Your quiet engineer husband has $20 million? Had, Lisa corrected miserably. I don't know if he's still my husband after last night. She explained the whole fight, how David felt betrayed by her lack of trust, how she felt betrayed by his secrets. Okay, wait, Rachel said, and Lisa could hear her thinking. Let me make sure I understand. David hid his money because he wanted to make sure you loved him for himself. Then you asked him to sign a prenup, which kind of proved you were worried about money more than love. Then you hired a detective instead of talking to him. Is that right? When you say it like that, it sounds bad, Lisa admitted. It is bad, Lisa. You both messed up big time, Rachel said bluntly. But the question is, do you love him? Of course I love him, Lisa said immediately. Even without the 20 million? Rachel pressed. If he was actually just a regular engineer, would you still love him? Lisa thought about it. She thought about how David always made her coffee just right. How he listened to her complain about difficult customers at the bakery. How he rubbed her feet when she'd been standing all day. How he made her laugh. How safe she felt with him. Yes, she said firmly. I'd love him even if he was poor. Then you need to tell him that, Rachel advised. And you need to figure out if you can forgive him for hiding the money, and if he can forgive you for the prenup and the detective thing. After hanging up, Lisa sat thinking for a long time. Rachel was right. Money had gotten in the way of what was really important, the fact that she and David loved each other. Or at least, they used to love each other. Maybe they still could. Lisa found David in his grandfather's old study, looking at a letter with yellowed paper. Can we talk? She asked from the doorway. David looked up, surprised. Sure. Lisa came in and sat in the other chair. What's that? She asked, pointing to the letter. A letter my grandfather wrote me before he died, David said. I was reading it again, trying to figure out what to do. What does it say? David hesitated, then handed it to her. You can read it if you want. The letter was written in shaky handwriting. Dear David, if you're reading this, you're 38 years old and have finally received your full inheritance. I made you wait because I wanted you to build your own life first, without relying on my money. By now, you've probably learned that money is complicated. It can help you do good things, but it can also make relationships difficult. People will treat you differently when they know you're wealthy. My advice is this: find someone who loves you when they think you have nothing. That's real love. And when you find that person, be honest with them. Secrets poison relationships, even well-meaning secrets. I hope I raised you to be wise and kind. Use the money to build a good life, but don't let it define who you are. Love, Grandpa William. Lisa finished reading with tears in her eyes. He sounds like he was a good man. He was, David agreed. And I think I didn't follow his advice very well. He said not to keep secrets, but that's exactly what I did. I didn't follow his advice either, Lisa admitted. He said find someone who loves you when they think you have nothing. And I did love you when I thought you had nothing. But then I got scared and put up walls with that prenup. I stopped acting like someone who loves you and started acting like someone protecting a business deal. David looked at her carefully. What are you saying? Lisa took a deep breath. I'm saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't trust you enough to just talk to you. I'm sorry I hired that investigator. I'm sorry about the prenup, not because it's meaningless now that I know about your money, but because it was wrong to treat our marriage like a business contract in the first place. I'm sorry too, David said quietly. I should have told you about the inheritance. I thought I was being smart and protecting our relationship, but I was really just being a coward. I was afraid you'd only love me for the money, but I never gave you a chance to prove otherwise. They sat in silence for a moment. I want to tear up the prenup, Lisa said suddenly. What? David looked shocked. I want to rip it up, Lisa repeated. I don't want legal papers deciding what's yours and what's mine. I want us to share everything, the way married people should. My bakeries, your inheritance, all of it. Together. Lisa, that's your life's work, David protested. Those bakeries mean nothing without you, Lisa finished. I spent so much energy protecting my business that I almost lost something way more valuable. I almost lost you. David's eyes got watery. You really mean that? I really do, Lisa said. I love you, David. I loved you when I thought you were a regular engineer, and I love you now. The money doesn't change that. It shouldn't change that. If we're going to make this marriage work, we need to really be partners. No secrets. No walls. No protecting ourselves from each other. David stood up and pulled Lisa into a hug. She wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. I love you too, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry I didn't trust you enough to be honest. They stood there holding each other for a long time, both of them crying a little bit, both of them relieved. When they finally pulled apart, David wiped his eyes and laughed. We really messed this up, didn't we? So badly, Lisa agreed, laughing too. We're like a couple in a crazy movie. At least it has a happy ending, David said, then paused. It does have a happy ending, right? We're going to be okay. Lisa took his hand. I think we're going to be better than okay. But we need to start over and do this right. No more secrets. Complete honesty even when it's hard. Deal, David agreed. Complete honesty from now on. Over the next few weeks, Lisa and David worked on rebuilding their trust in each other. They had long talks about everything: David's childhood with his grandfather, Lisa's fears about her business, their hopes for the future. David explained that his grandfather had been a brilliant businessman who'd started with almost nothing and built his fortune through hard work and smart investments. William Chin had faced discrimination and hardship but had never given up. He'd wanted David to learn to stand on his own 2 feet before inheriting wealth. He didn't want me to be lazy or entitled, David explained. That's why he made me wait until I was 38. By then, I'd already built my own career and my own life. Lisa shared her fears about the bakery business, how competitive it was, how she worried constantly about money and success, how she'd let that worry make her suspicious and controlling. I think I forgot what's really important, she admitted. I got so focused on protecting what I'd built that I forgot why I built it in the first place. I wanted financial security so I could have a good life. But what's the point of financial security if I'm too scared to actually trust anyone and enjoy my life? They also talked about what to do with David's inheritance. I want to invest in your bakeries, David said one evening as they sat together on the porch. Not because I don't think you can handle it yourself, but because I want us to build something together. Real partners, working toward the same goals. Lisa was quiet for a moment, thinking about it. The old Lisa would have said no immediately, afraid of losing control of her business. But the new Lisa, the one who was learning to trust, saw it differently. Okay, she agreed. But only if we do it right. We'll draw up real partnership papers, meet with lawyers together, make decisions together. Equal partners. Equal partners, David agreed. I like the sound of that. They decided to use some of the inheritance money to expand Sweet Lisa's bakeries to 5 more cities across Colorado. David's business knowledge and Lisa's baking expertise made a great team. They spent hours planning together, drawing up business strategies, and dreaming about the future. Lisa also insisted they do something else with the money. Your grandfather worked hard for this, she said. We should use some of it to help other people the way he would have wanted. So they set up a scholarship fund for kids who wanted to go to college but couldn't afford it, especially kids who'd lost their parents like David had. They called it the William Chin Memorial Scholarship. Grandpa would have loved this, David said when they announced the first 5 scholarship winners. He always said money should be used to make the world better. 1 year later, Lisa and David stood in the same dining room where the prenup had been signed. But this time, they had different papers on the table. These papers created an official business partnership for the bakery expansion. They also included documents for a trust they'd created together to manage the inheritance money responsibly. Ready? Lisa asked, holding out a pen. Ready, David confirmed. They signed together, side by side, as equal partners in business and in life. Later that evening, they had a small party to celebrate their new partnership. Rachel was there, along with some of Lisa's employees and David's co-workers. I have to say, Rachel whispered to Lisa in the kitchen, you two really turned things around. A year ago, I thought you were headed for divorce court. So did I, Lisa admitted. But it turned out we just needed to stop being scared and start being honest with each other. And finding out he had $20 million didn't hurt, Rachel teased. Lisa laughed. You know what's funny? The money doesn't really matter. I mean, it's nice to have, and we're doing good things with it. But I was happy with David when I thought he was just a regular engineer, and I'm happy with him now. The amount of money didn't change how I feel about him. That's real love, Rachel said, giving her friend a hug. Across the room, David was talking to Tom Bradley, the private investigator Lisa had hired. She'd invited Tom to the party as a way of showing there were no hard feelings. I have to thank you, David was saying to Tom. If you hadn't uncovered the truth, Lisa and I might have kept our secrets forever. We needed that confrontation to clear the air. Tom chuckled. First time I've been thanked by the person I was hired to investigate. But I'm glad it worked out for you too. As the party wound down and their friends went home, Lisa and David stood on their porch looking at the stars. You know what I learned from all of this? Lisa said, leaning against David's shoulder. What's that? That trying to protect yourself from getting hurt just makes you miss out on real love, she said. The prenup, the secrets, the investigations, all of it was just us being scared. Scared of trusting each other completely. And now? David asked. Now I'm not scared anymore, Lisa said. I trust you completely. And I know you trust me too. David kissed the top of her head. Best decision I ever made was signing that prenup. What? Lisa pulled back to look at him, confused. Why would you say that? Because it started this whole mess, and that mess forced us to confront our fears and really talk to each other, David explained. If none of that had happened, we might have kept going with our secrets and our walls. Eventually, that would have destroyed us. But instead, we dealt with it, worked through it, and came out stronger. Lisa thought about that and realized he was right. The prenup incident had been painful, but it had also been necessary. It had revealed problems in their marriage that needed fixing. "We should keep it," she said suddenly. "Keep what?" "The prenup. We should frame it and hang it on the wall as a reminder." David laughed. "A reminder of what?" "A reminder that we learned to trust each other," Lisa said. "We started with that silly piece of paper trying to protect ourselves from each other. Now we don't need it because we know what's really important: being honest, being partners, and choosing love over fear." "I love that idea," David said. And that's exactly what they did. The prenup, the one that had meant everything to Lisa and nothing to David, got framed and hung in their home office. Under it, they added a small sign that read, "The day we learned that love is worth more than protection." Sweet Lisa's Bakeries expanded to 10 locations across Colorado, with David and Lisa running the business together. The William Chin Memorial Scholarship helped 50 students go to college in its first 5 years. But more importantly, Lisa and David learned to build their marriage on trust instead of fear, on honesty instead of secrets, and on partnership instead of self-protection. The prenup that had almost torn them apart became a symbol of how far they'd come, from two scared people trying to protect themselves to two partners who chose to trust each other completely, no matter what. And they lived happily ever after, not because they had $20 million, but because they finally understood that real wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in love, trust, and the courage to be truly vulnerable with another person.